Hello, and welcome to
1, 2, 3. Raspberries and Chuckles. Raspberries and Chuckles. Raspberries and Chuckles. Raspberries and Chuckles. Take a raspberry, put a chuckle inside. Right.
This is a very special episode. We have one of our favorite singers from one of our favorite bands. Dave from CrossCurrent is here. How are you doing, Dave?
I'm good. Thank you for having me on the show.
Dude,
It is an absolute pleasure.
Such a pleasure. It's so, I mean, like you when Jono said you are one of our favorite singers from one of our favorite bands, but he's not lying. Like he genuinely isn't.
Not
in
a
the beginning,
mistake
like in the when
I
we
just-
started out, we were like CrossCurrent. They're the guys that.
I don't take compliments
They're our
well.
hometown
I
heroes.
just get very awkward.
Our hometown heroes, if you
I start
will.
blushing.
It's fine. No one can see you blushing except Simon. How's it, Simon?
Oh yes, how's it, Simon? Okay, let's start chatting. So, David, COVID-19 is a thing. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's happening. And we want to know,
Yes.
how are you guys handling this? How are you doing? What the fuck is going on?
Oh, well, okay. So to give you insight, my brother and I live together. We're both part of the band. Milo, unfortunately, stays out in Nuruk, so getting hold of him is a little bit of a challenge. But because we live literally across the hallway from one another, it's been quite easy to have band meetings, make some music and jam. But I think what we've really taken advantage of during this time is really finding ways to educate ourselves and develop skills, whether it's animation or editing or, just learning and brushing up on some of the skills that we had no clue about before doing this. And with COVID, I think there's this need for us to shift towards the digital. So it's been all about how to use a camera, how to portray your music to digital platforms and to people out there, while also competing with a lot of that noise that is already out there. Yeah.
Yeah, dude. Everyone's kind of had to adapt now, and it's so hectic. I'm glad because we at least had this plan before lockdown happened, and we were like, okay, now we kind of have to do it. But in uni, I've noticed there's so many people doing music who just don't really know what to do, It's just, there's still a lot of people waiting for it to end. And I feel like you guys are doing really well to not wait for it to end. This is kind of like the new normal. We kind of just have to accept this is where we're going. This is kind of something we've had to do. Yeah, dude, no, it's fucking hectic.
From a Cape Town perspective in the music industry, I'd say there's quite a fickle audience, and I hope I'm not offending anyone listening to this, but I think it's already been quite tough as a musician to bring people to your performance, to invite them to market. Is already tough as it is. So I think shifting towards digital streaming and encouraging people to engage with us on the digital sphere is almost kind of where we were heading anyway. So I think this is just, jump-starting that. It's the catalyst for what is already going to become a reality for a lot of us, with venues not really desiring live music, maybe more of a shift in electronic music. And of course, I'm a bit fickle about this, but it's my experiences tends to be someone's not going to pay money for a full band, a live band, if they can spend a fraction of that on a live DJ. So I think it's really kind of a revolution that is kind of necessary to survive.
On that, what do you think? I mean, like what Jono was saying about people kind of hoping things are just going to go back to normal. They're not good. Live gigs as they were, I think, at least from my perspective, are not going to be a thing for at least a year from now. In terms of people being comfortable. Yeah. And the thing is, so many of the things that at least I love about live gigs is jolling and having other people sweat and you're just all hot and sweaty and that's just not going to be a thing. Imagine a live gig where you're all 2 meters apart from one another. That's the saddest thought. I'm nearly crying. That's so bleak. But
it is a disaster actually, because I think a lot of us as musicians feed off crowds. It's you go out there and you're trying to establish an emotional connection with the audience.
Yeah.
And I think there's like another element that exists when it's like face to face, like you're able to look into
100%.
someone's eyes and sing to them. I mean, if you like Jono, you write a love song, you want to sing that to the girl in the audience, you know. That's my number one move. But we actually managed to participate in Up the Creek's relief show, which was a live stream event. And unfortunately, we weren't able to do ours live exactly, but we recorded ourselves, sent it through to them, and they streamed it. And what we found with that, it was like we sat and watched it ourselves and all the other bands, and like it was great. But I think it's kind of that experience when you're watching like YouTube videos, and I think because you're exposed to it so much, it's hard to be impressed, even though it's really good. But when you're actually in it, and you feel like the thudding of the kick drum, and like you said, the sweat, and you can feel the passion of the musician. Yeah. And I think capturing that on a camera, like you have to be incredibly talented, and like already your job as a musician. So I think your job is now shifting from being someone that's all about music to someone that's all about capturing that and producing it. And you basically have to become a jack of many trades. And I think that's what we're trying to do ourselves. Yeah, sorry.
I was going to say, I watched the Up the Creek thing. I thought it was so sick. I really dig because one thing I noticed like with a lot of live shows now is that it's a lot of bands still treat it like they're still at a live show, you know? So the camera's filming them. It's like filming the same thing, except now there's just no crowd and there's no energy. And it's still...
Yeah.
And that's very
you guys,
static.
when you did it and when you guys did it, you knew there wasn't a crowd there, you know? You like catered to that. You did shit that I've never seen you guys do before. And I was like, oh, this is dope. Like it kept us interested the whole time. And I was like, oh, hey.
What was nice, because I'm a shy guy. I'm not really comfortable in the spotlight, and I know that a lot of lead singers can relate, and it's kind of like a position that we kind of get thrown into. And I don't like, obviously hating the spotlight. It was so nice to be in my own living room and to have the comfort of friends and family around, and that's it. It's people that I'm totally okay with being a nut with. And I was just able to relax. So that from that perspective, you could take this as an opportunity to completely revolutionize performances, whether it's outfits or visuals or just like finding creative ways to make people laugh. You know, and I think approaching it like a formal performance where you're all up on a stage is just not going to cut it, because that's been seen. And I think, you know, we are quite trigger happy when it comes to clicking next, and I think it's about making people stop. And we have a lot to learn from that, because we're nowhere near, you know, as good as we'd want to be in that domain, but it's a learning curve.
No, 100%. And I mean, firstly, just to say, I also watched the show and my family watched it and whatever, and we watched pretty much all the performances. And in terms of the ones that were the most engaging, yours was 100% one of them. And I mean, whether it's because I think they had issues at the OMG studios and whatever with all sorts of things, but in terms of just your guys, you never knew what was coming next. Like the whole time it was something different going on, which was so nice to watch. And like the outfit
so
changes.
Hard.
Yeah, it was an enjoyable experience. It didn't feel like just watching, like, you know, when you go and you watch like the 1975 Reading 2017, like, okay, which in fairness is an incredible video, but it's just video of a live performance, and you lose so much of the magic because so much of the magic is from the audience. But by you guys not treating it like that, it didn't feel like it lost as much by not having an audience. It was just a good audio visual experience as opposed to a video of a live show, which was what I think for me set it apart. But on what you were saying about transitioning, because it's something I think I've been thinking about, at least from like a production standpoint, is does the nature, like you said, does the nature of how we perform live and how in terms of on video have to change fundamentally? Like what do you think is going to change in that respect? Like more like video masking. I was thinking about this for if we do a live show, like we got to just use a shit ton of video masking and different angles and whatever, just to keep it exciting and fun, and outfit changes and all sorts of things.
So like our approach to the whole video was kind of like, how do we have fun with it, because you can kind of theme your whole video. You can kind of, it's like a platform where you can kind of just use as much creative expression as you want. There's like no rules at all. But I think the key thing is solid audio quality, and you can do that because you have time to do post-production if you choose to do it that way. And I think doing like a direct live stream, it will never do your music justice. You are competing with music, like people's speakers that maybe are shit. Maybe they like are in a terrible listening environment. So you have to kind of do as much work as you can to make sure that audio is good enough to at least translate in the slightest way, like in the best way possible. Like if you can get a little bit of that, then I think that's already the step in the right direction. And then also I think when it comes to actually performing, it's like you kind of have to invite people in. So we kind of took this approach where it's like, let's use a single shot. The less cuts there are, the more visceral and real it will feel. Let's bring someone, like I got my girlfriend to come in with a camera on a gimbal, and she just moved around. And obviously, like, you know, there were basic movements. Like she didn't really know what she was doing, but she did like a really good job at just capturing what was happening in the moment. And also not breaking that up by editing it, doing like cut scenes. If you have multiple angles, then it kind of feels less live and it feels more like
100%.
Something that would be on YouTube. You know what I mean?
I think what was really interesting about your one was because she was moving in and out on stage, it was such, like, no one in an audience sees that perspective ever. No one's ever in between you and Owen on stage. Like, no one is ever there.
There's no need for front row seats anymore, because you can get right in there.
I think that's such a cool thing to think about, actually. Like, Oaks, we mustn't do a normal, like, front on shot, or at least not half the time, because a front on shot is what people get anyways, and it gets pretty boring really quickly. Whereas if someone's like looking up Owen's nostrils,
Simon on the drone,
you know, if it's like, on, like, yeah, exactly, we have Simon zooming around our heads, but like that's perspectives that people don't get, and that's what I think. Yeah, I think people are, like you said,
just opens his legs. Goes through.
Yeah, no one's ever had that perspective between Greg's legs while he's playing the bass. Just what an idea! What a privilege would that be?
It's just, you have to keep it PG, you know.
Well, it depends. Depends on which stream you're watching. Some of you pay higher. The rules
but I do
change.
think
my fans, only fans.
The challenge that we have is kind of convincing an audience and believing that this is a rewarding product for them to buy. I mean, if you hear, I have to pay tickets to watch a band live on my TV, like, what the hell? I can just go on YouTube and watch a video of them live that they've posted already. And then it's like, how do you maintain value in products that, you know, that you might have put out there already? Like, how do you stay like desirable to an audience? And I think we as musicians have to kind of work together in creating content that is sort of like on the same level, and kind of encourages consumers to be like, wow, okay, this is something that I could get into. Like, I will benefit from this, and it's like, it's the right way forward. Otherwise, you know, we're gonna have like huge like disparity between some artists who don't have any gear and don't know how to produce, and those who do. And I think it's really about like reaching out to maybe artists that have none of these skills, and trying to get them together, and like encourage like a community of musicians that are able to support one another. And that's something that I've always wanted to do, and I would like encourage that we work together on this, is kind of get artists in and record them in a very similar style, which we did for the Up the Creek video, just so that everyone is able to have that opportunity.
Dave knows he's saying all my buzzwords. He's saying all my buzzwords. He knows he's pushing all my buttons. I'm just sitting here, yes.
But these are words, you know. It's like, it comes down to actually doing it, and I think that is the mobilizing and the time, and you know, like that's going to be the challenge.
We're putting it on the internet now, so now we got to do it. We'll make it happen.
Wait, let's drop a little bomb here. Backyard Boogie 2.
Digital boogie.
Digital version.
Well, there we go. Like, here's an idea. We could set up the whole stage like it is in my backyard, get a bunch of artists, live record it, and stream it like for ticket sales. Like that's a way to do it. And I think, just doing something like that, I don't think it's a reality that we'll have a live audience. Maybe like a small audience. We could get like a bunch of like very elite private guests. Very, very important people. Yeah, exactly.
I was going to say now also, I watched the Youngblood show, which was the first live stream thing on COVID that I watched. And what made it, even though it was free, which was crazy, like what made it so interesting and what made me kind of want to watch that and not just, why don't I just watch a music video? Why don't I just watch one of his other performances? Was because he had like different things going on which you wouldn't normally see at a live show. He had interviews, he had games, he had different stuff, that different ways of connecting, which was like, okay, I would actually want to see this. This is, we don't want to just sit here and pretend we're playing live anymore. We don't want to settle for like second best. We need to make this a new like thing.
I think we all just need to realize that the rules of how to perform live they are not there anymore. And so why like, and I know we thought about it, like, but to anyone who listens to this, like, fuck what the rules say in terms of, you have to set up with the front man at the front and you all face the same way so that the camera gets you all, and like none of those rules exist anymore. There are so many, like, you've got to do it differently to that so that people watch it and go, shit, this is different to anything I've seen. This is like, this is what's going on here. This is interesting to me. So I think, like what Youngblood did, I think is an excellent example. But now,
I thought it was so sick.
Yeah. Anyways, enough about live performance. Let's move on to the other side of music. Tangerine. For those of you who don't know,
please tell us about
CrossCurrent are like kind of they're in the process of releasing an album, which is a weird thing to say. They are
always in the process of releasing an album.
They have been releasing an album over several months. So explain to us, Tangerine, what is an episodic album? What is an episodic album?
Yes, what do you mean? What the fuck are you doing?
I could lie to you and say it's this esoteric format of releasing music, but actually, it's just a form of me bullshitting and trying to buy time for me to actually do all of these things myself.
I wondered which angle you were going to go on that. I like that you just went, I
love that.
When I pitched it to the band, as I pitched it, I started believing in the very story I was telling them, is that, like, people are, they're not going to listen to an whole album. I mean, I struggle to listen to full albums. I just do. My attention span is very limited. And if my favorite artist drops a full album, it's going to take me like a couple of months to get through that whole album and appreciate every song that's been put out there. So the principle with an episodic album is, despite the fact that it's also buying me time, it really helps kind of give each song a position to be heard. And obviously you guys know how streaming platforms work. Playlist submission, it's like, one song at a time, and you have to kind of give it enough time to be evaluated. So I think as a young artist who hasn't got the audience base that they need to drop a full album, it's way more valuable to drop a single song and give that song as best chance as possible. And I think, like there's this approach, just release music, and then they will get like streams will slowly start pulling up. But it doesn't work it didn't work for us. But what really has worked well is giving each song time to breathe, giving people a moment to kind of like engage with the meaning of the song instead of it just being something that they just skip through, listen to 30 seconds and skip through. So that's been like our approach, and it's been quite nice to get my brother on board doing the art style, and really he's come into his own. He's like, I never knew how creative he was. So actually doing the whole album ourselves has really given each person in the band an opportunity to kind of develop their own skills.
Can we just take a moment? Owen, stop doing so many things, dude. Like, other people need to do things as well. The man's playing every instrument under the sun and doing the graphic design, and dude, chill. It's okay. It's fine. But no, in all seriousness, it's mad impressive. So guys, boys, what we've cocked up on is not like pretending to be all edgy and esoteric and release an episodic album. We've just been doing exactly the same thing. We just didn't know there was a nice way of putting it.
Yeah.
With our song every month, we should have just
I've seen lots of artists doing it.
Yeah. We should have called it an album. We missed a trick.
No, but
what was it like the plan, recording that at home? Like you doing, because as far as you did everything, yeah.
Yeah, I do everything. So from the recording engineering to the mixing to the mastering. And, there are huge pros and there are also huge cons. When you're that involved from the process from beginning to end, subjectivity becomes very warped, and like what you think is good enough is also very warped. So you kind of develop like a love-hate relationship with the very product that you are like giving so much of your time to. And that's my biggest problem is being happy with what I've produced, and I'm sure lots of artists relate to that. And it's being able to get someone in to say, yeah, that's fine, and move on, instead of sit and like constantly tweak. And I found that a lot of the time by doing that, I do myself a disservice. And so, the big con is that you end up spending too much time on something instead of just getting it done. But other than that, it's also been a huge eye-opener as to how much money you can save with basic gear. And at the end of the day, music is subjective. So if you are happy with what you produced, who's to say that it isn't worthy of being up with some of the biggest hits? You just can't. And I think we really have to kind of like debunk this notion that music has to be done at a studio, because that's a very like traditional, modernized version of what successful musicianship is all about. And it's about being signed with a record label. And I think, it's about kind of ignoring that, going against the grain, adopting that independent indie vibe, because there's so many success stories that are really based on doing it yourself. And I think the DIY approach is, it's so rewarding. Like, I've built my own acoustic treatment for my room. I built my own studio desk. I mean, it's crazy. I soldered my own cables.
Hugo, you know who we're bringing in next year to help us out.
Cool.
Man.
Yeah. Don't drop too many.
It's just a little. It's just a sitter. People can just go, what's going on? It's fine.
No,
just
but
leave it there.
I would really encourage that, if it's something that needs to be done that costs money, first just look online and see if there's an easy solution to do it yourself, and give that a go before just jumping in and spending a lot of money on things.
Yeah, like 90% of the time you can do it yourself.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You should see Hugo's gym. Hugo made his own gym, and it's fucking crazy.
Yeah, no, I see that thing. God. That is intense.
It's wild.
My gym is getting out of bed every morning.
Cool. Yeah, and getting back in. Don't undersell yourself. You're getting back in as well, and up and down out of your chair. You're doing more than you think. Yeah, no, I mean,
wasn't sure where that was going.
Says Hugo. Yeah, no, look, I mean, Jono records all of our stuff in his bedroom, so I think like
brilliant, yeah.
But like, look, I think you're right. Like, especially on the whole, like the way of, and it goes back to what we were talking about with the album as well. Kind of getting signed by a record label, going into studio for a month, writing an album, releasing an album, and then touring it for a year is how things were done back in LP days, because that was how you had to release on vinyl. That was just how it worked. Only studios could record to vinyl. So you had to be in studio to record an album. You could only go in studio if you had a shit ton of money because it was expensive. So you needed a record deal. That is just not true anymore at all. Yeah. It's just not how anything works. But we're still in this mindset of like, I've got to release my EP or my LP because, that's, and to do that, I've got to go into studio, and to do that, I've got to get signed. And it's just not true. Chance the Rapper's been independent, is still independent. Billie Eilish recorded her first album in her bedroom, and it was a Billboard #1. Like, none of those rules apply anymore, but people just maybe aren't as aware of how little they apply yet.
And also, like, not really knowing what you're doing is a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you can make mistakes that sound really cool.
Yeah.
You know, and you go,
that's 90% of our music. That's just a big mistake. Okay. No, but also I think another challenge which I didn't bring up is, you know, if it's your bedroom studio and you're basically living in that space. And I think the challenge is really defining what is work and what is a passion. And like, if you are producing music and you're wanting to make an income from that, then you really have to treat it like a job. And I think that's also been a huge struggle. It's like, I'll put everything else in my life as a priority and then music, because music is my passion / hobby. But then also it's a very viable form of making money. And yeah, I think the big challenge is like, where does that fit in my daily schedule? And is it valid to spend my hours doing that, or, you know, studying for a test, or, you know, like doing getting a job? And I think that's kind of like the sacrifice that comes into play when you do take it up to do it all yourself. Is like, you need to adopt like a really good daily routine to establish like a good work ethic. Otherwise, you know, you take ages to release an album and you call it an episodic album, you know?
I was gonna say with the work ethic thing, because we've done this thing where we release a song every month, but we didn't have all the songs at the beginning. So now I've got a deadline. You know, and it's really helped me, because now it's coming up. The next month's coming up, so I must fucking finish this song and I must get it out. And it really, and also with the content that we did over the holidays, holy shit!
You guys were smashing 9 to 5 content.
Work pretme much.
And then I think it goes to what you were saying, Dave. Like, I think at least for me, Greg, Hugo, where we got GCT now sitting on us, and that like it went from where we were able to do, like, we were cranking out 6 pieces of content a week during the holidays, and then uni started, and we all just went, shit, there's so much work. And I think that's been like, what's been difficult for us is kind of exactly like you said, prioritizing doing band things where, and like you said, I mean, you were saying before we started recording, Dave, like the workload's gotten so much, it almost feels like it's gotten more, because everything's an assessment and everything counts now, and you have 2 submissions a week for each subject, and it's just balancing that, and then the fact that no one knows how to do this music thing now. Like, we have to rediscover how to become a musician, and uni's more hectic and more time consuming, and no one has any idea what we're doing. So I think you're bang on. I think kind of discovering the right direction is something that we have to start prioritizing.
I think, you know, really it like engaging with the school of YouTube as much as possible. Like, we all have free time, and I think it's very easy to say, I don't have time to do that, and like really invent like these barriers that are going to hold you back. But those are all in your mind, and obviously that sounds quite esoteric to say, but it really is. Like, I have a lot of free time where I watch series because I feel like I've done a lot of work, but that time could be substituted with learning other things. And I think it's really about like abandoning any kind of laziness. And if you're passionate about it, I think it's really, you know, it's your responsibility to make it work. It's very easy to say COVID-19 is going to hold me back, I can't do music, and let me find an alternative. But really then it's like you weren't cut out to be a musician, because like 90% of being a musician is just grinding. It is begging for people to help you out, get you further. It's just, you know, we're just groveling all the time, aren't we? Playlist curators. I think I've emailed like hundreds of curators, and you know, like you like 1 out of 100 might reply, and then that's just the reality of it. So if you think
and
it was
1 out of 10 of those replies might be a maybe.
No, exactly.
The rest are no's. So I
think
pretty thankless work.
That's why I said at the beginning of this, that COVID-19 is literally just helping us deal with, you know, the actual task of being a musician, and that is really taking it on as like a huge holistic grouping of activities that you just have to know how to do. You have to know how to plug your music. You have to know how to edit videos. You have to know how to reach and engage with your audience, and it's a huge learning curve as a young band.
I like that because I think it's almost easy, like the way things were. It's like easy to just focus on live shows because that's what music is at its most is your live show and how many people are coming to your live show. So it's easy to just focus on your live shows when the world is back. But this has almost forced everyone to get into their admin and get into the stuff that's a bit less fun and a bit more difficult. And then the people who aren't willing to do that did it just whatever.
Yeah, I just had an overheat. Don't worry. If I just go black on the screen, it's...
Yeah, it's fine. We'll just put a photo of you for now. And then once it sussed itself out, it can go back on.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah, I think you're bang on. Like, it's now forced everyone to do the harder things. And if you weren't willing to do those kind of less comfortable, more just mundane things, that's going to be what trips you up now. But it's what would have tripped you up in the end anyways.
Oh, exactly.
Most likely.
I think that is.
And it's just kind of exposing 100%. That. Like, there are bands now which just haven't done anything in months because literally all they did, their entire function was playing live shows. And now they're just quiet. Which...
And this is, I think, where us as young musicians, we have a lot of energy to bring to the industry. We have a lot of know-how in terms of tech, and also we are hungry for it. And I think if I can easily use you guys as an example along with us, but our approach to music is a lot more aggressive than, a lot of bands that come out with a lot of older, more mature. I hate to say mature, but we are able to be foolish on camera and be real. And I was talking to Jono before we even started this, is that the biggest mistake we ever made was trying to be like bands that were out there, try to adopt an aesthetic that already existed. And that just wasn't interesting to people. We tried to be very serious. We did all those serious photo shoots. But then actually a lot of, about being a musician and developing an audience is really engaging with them and your person and giving them your personality, and people relate to that personality. If you show them a little bit more about who you actually are, then you're going to have people that are invested in you. And I think it's really about what you guys have been doing is taking the piss on little things, having fun. That joy really comes through in your music and how you present it to people. And I think that is definitely the most effective way now to engage with an audience. And I think what you guys have done, hats off to you guys, is really just being real from the beginning. And that's definitely my little input there.
That was so nice.
That was so nice, bro.
Look, our little hometown hero came on and was nice to us.
Oh, but
we expected to spend the whole time being nice to you.
No. I just think, we are underrated just because of the environment that we are in. And it's, we go, there needs to be some credit given to people that really try hard, and you guys have really made it work the best you can from the very beginning. Brad, you are persistent in emailing, creating events. 90% of bands out there, no one does that.
Brad,
and you can't sit on your ass and wait for things to happen, So you guys are definitely killing it in that regard.
Thank you, Master. I'm gonna quickly. We're gonna keep talking. So just talk to yourself for a second. I'm gonna end the Zoom and start another one because it's got that timer thing. But there's just one more thing that I want to touch on. But we're gonna end the call. Keep talking to yourself.
Sounds good.
So that Simon's not
Don't
bored.
End the
Don't end your recordings. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Keep
Okay, cool. I'm gonna restart the meeting now.
Now I'm waiting for Brad to start a meeting.
I don't know whether you're gonna put this in or not. Jono will tell you, but.
Raspberries and Chuckles. Take a raspberry, put a
what?
chuckle inside.
What?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm in.
In that amount of time?
Yeah, okay. So, we're reaching the 40-minute kind of mark. So I had one big question it's not that big of a question. I just wanted you to clarify something because I saw you. I can't remember when you told me this, but I think it was when I saw you at Tom Mish And
Yeah,
I know,
that was a good time.
I was fucked. I don't know how fucked you were, but I was definitely fucked.
No, I was driving,
you
so
said
I was
something-
not at all.
Oh,
I was
okay.
drunk
Well,
on the good vibes.
Oh, wait. You said one thing
That's
to me
even more powerful, bro.
about one thing that you would have done differently as a band was you would have played less gigs, and I wanted to know what you meant by that, because that's a very interesting thing to say.
Yeah, I think over the years, I mean, we've done shows from restaurants to markets to, you know, playing at the waterfront or, you know, getting the opportunity to open for another band. And like all of those things are really great. And I think you develop a lot of really great skills if you are able to like get on stage and perform and engage with an audience. But I think the biggest problem is that it's held us back from maybe refining our music, recording it and producing it and getting it out there, and actually developing an audience that like exists. Because I think we would perform and we get like a fan from one show, but you know, then that's it. If you are able to get music out for people to listen to, it's there and available to them forever, and you can develop like a more solid fan base. And I think that the real slow movement for us has been getting onto that really a bit late in the game. We did shows, I mean, like the worst, some terrible gigs, you know, where you
when
just...
did you guys
you
start
kind of-
off? When did you start playing? I mean, I think I remember this for everyone's.
We were playing since high school, so I mean, it's really hard to pinpoint exactly when. I think I just broke up with like my girlfriend at the time, and I'm like, okay, I need something to fill the void, and then we started the band.
Started writing singing songs.
The guys are gonna roll their eyes at that one. But yeah, so we've been going for about nearly 4 years now. Maybe longer.
I remember
I don't
like
even know.
2016-ish. I remember I was there a couple of times for like live sessions and stuff in like 2016, 2017, or like 2017, and you'd been going for a little while.
Yeah, so no, like we kind of started out then, and maybe Jono, I in a lot of ways I maybe retract some of that statement, because we actually learned quite a bit about the industry that we wouldn't have if we didn't go at it immediately and just perform and apply to get shows, apply to festivals. We wouldn't have developed that kind of like skill to like engage with people in the industry. But I think it's held us back tremendously in kind of keeping current with how things are being done these days. And just like I said at the beginning of this, like with COVID, we're kind of having to really encourage audiences to come and watch us. And it's been so hard in Cape Town to get people to come and watch. I think sometimes it's like a handful of people that I see at a show that has been to like another show. We've known them from other shows. And Brad, I would say you would be one of those people that's been backing us from the very beginning. But developing like really loyal fans, it is challenging because we are competing with so many other bands. Like just the other day, I was just scrolling through some Cape Town bands on a blog, a blog, and I was like, I've never seen these people, and I've been in the industry for like 4 years. So it's really about like, how do you not be one of those many bands that exist that, you know, aren't really well known? And I think developing your online presence really is the only way to do it, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, I think now more than ever, I think that's the most true thing at the moment. I think back in the day, you could flourish as a band. You could. It was hella difficult, but you could just by being really good live. Like, you could get away with that, but like your odds of success are super slim. And I think your odds would have been made much better by being online and improving your digital presence. But I think now it's become, that is absolutely the most important thing that you have to do. And I think, like you said earlier, I think our advantage there is being young, being guys who don't have too much of a preformed idea of how we're supposed to do everything, like how the industry does things, and that's the rule, that's how it gets done. Whereas I think and also just we are brought up, we are the internet generation. The slightly older guys were not brought up in quite such a way with using the internet, so they'll just be less comfortable. We're just more comfortable, which I think is one of the kind of advantages that we hold coming out of this whole thing.
But then also I think there is something to be said for being able to back up what you put out online.
Oh yeah,
because your songs can be as good as whatever. Then people come to a live show and it's just like, what the fuck is this?
No, 100%. You have to be able to do both.
You've got the balance. You got to have the balance.
And let's be honest, there's nothing better than playing at a festival or like just that vibe of being like you backstage, you get your own drinks, you get your own little space to be in, and being like given that it really boosts your I'm struggling with
ego.
Words at the moment.
Your ego.
But not ego, but like it really brings you confidence in your own music. And when you have people reacting to your music live, it's just the magic about it. And I think that's why we do it. I must warn you, my camera is saying it's going to overheat again. So
okay, well, I think that we naturally covered all the points, which makes us a good podcast. So
that is amazing.
Thank you very much for being here, Dave. I'm sure everyone very enjoyed it a lot. I'm sure the viewers at home are going to enjoy this. It's a very long one, Dave. But it's our second one, so who knows how long the rest are going to get. But yeah, thank you so much. Hope you have a good lockdown, and we'll see you in the future.
We'll see you.
Absolutely, and maybe you'll see the whole album in the future too.
That would be incredible. All right, thank you, Dave.
That's why we.
Okay.
Yeah, cheers, guys.
That was very nice.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so when it comes... Okay, so the show's done now.
1, 2, 3. Raspberries and Chuckles. Raspberries and Chuckles. Raspberries and Chuckles. Raspberries and Chuckles. Take a raspberry, put a chuckle inside.